Let's rewind the clock for a moment. Picture yourself 6 years ago. You were earning $38,000 a year, living in a modest studio, driving a decade-old Toyota Corolla, and telling yourself, if I could just get to $65,000, I'd finally be able to relax. Life would feel easier. I'd be content. Fast forward to today, you've climbed a ladder, put in the late nights, switched jobs, and now you're making $82,000 a year, more than double your old salary. You've upgraded to a spacious apartment, leased a newer car, and treat yourself to takeout and weekend getaways more often. But here you are, watching a video about why your money still doesn't feel like enough and why you're still anxious about your finances. In fact, if you're honest, you might even feel more pressure now than you did back then. And the wildest part? You're already thinking, if I could just hit $100,000, then I'd finally feel secure. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Hey, I'm Alex, and I've spent years obsessing over why earning more money never seems to solve the stress or bring the satisfaction we expect. If you're someone who keeps reaching new income milestones but still feels stuck in the same emotional rut, or if you've ever wondered why your financial success doesn't match how you feel inside, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Here's the truth. What you're experiencing isn't a personal flaw. It's not because you're bad with money or ungrateful or just need to hustle harder. What you're feeling is one of the most well-documented psychological patterns in human history. It's called the hedonic treadmill. And once you understand how this invisible force works, you'll finally see why you've been sprinting toward happiness without ever arriving. More importantly, you'll learn how to step off the treadmill for good. So, what exactly is the hedonic treadmill? Sometimes called hedonic adaptation, it's a concept psychologists have studied for decades. The idea is simple, but the implications are huge. Humans have an incredible ability to adjust to both positive and negative changes in their lives, eventually returning to a stable baseline of happiness. Let's break that down. Imagine you win a huge cash prize. At first, you're ecstatic, but after a few months, that excitement fades and you settle back into your usual mood. On the flip side, if you go through a tough setback, like losing a job or facing a breakup, you'll feel down for a while, but eventually you'll bounce back to your normal emotional state. This isn't just a theory, it's backed by decades of research. One classic study from the late 1970s found that people who won the lottery weren't significantly happier than others just a year after their win. In some cases, they even enjoyed everyday pleasures less than before. Think about that. People who suddenly became rich ended up less satisfied by simple joys than those who never won anything. That's not a money problem, it's a brain problem. And here's the kicker. Your brain is running this same adaptation program every time you get a raise, a promotion, or a financial windfall. The adjustment period varies, but for most positive changes, research suggests it takes about 3 to 6 months before your new income or lifestyle feels completely normal. That $70,000 salary that felt amazing in January? By summer, it's just your salary. The car that made you feel successful when you drove it off the lot? Give it a year and it's just your car. Our brains aren't wired to stay impressed. They're wired to adapt and then crave more. Let's look at some numbers, because this is where things get really interesting and a little unsettling. A landmark study from 2010 by Daniel Kahneman and Angus Deaton at Princeton analyzed hundreds of thousands of survey responses. They found that emotional well-being rises with income, but only up to about $75,000 a year. Adjusted for inflation, that's closer to $100,000 today. But wait, there's more. A more recent study in 2021 by Matthew Killingsworth at the University of Pennsylvania found that happiness does keep rising with income, but at a much slower rate. In practical terms, going from $50,000 to $100,000 brings you, say, 20 happiness points. Doubling your income again to $200,000 might only add 5 or 6 more. You're working harder, dealing with more stress, and getting a fraction of the emotional payoff. This is the law of diminishing returns, applied to your entire life. And yet, almost nobody talks about this when they're telling you to grind harder and chase the next big paycheck. The financial advice industry has a vested interest in keeping you running on that treadmill, always chasing the next milestone. Because if you ever realize the finish line doesn't exist, you might stop consuming their content too. Let's make this real, with some numbers. Suppose you're 32 years old, making $55,000 a year. After taxes, you're taking home about $43,000, or roughly $3,600 a month. Your essential expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, add up to about $2,200. That leaves you with $1,400 in discretionary income. It's tight, but you manage. Then you get a raise. Now you're making $75,000. After taxes, you're bringing home about $58,000 or $4,800 a month. But here's what happens. You move to a bigger place, adding $400 to your rent. You upgrade your car, which bumps your monthly payment by $200. You start eating out more, adding $250 to your food budget. You sign up for a few more streaming services, buy nicer clothes, maybe join a gym you rarely use. Suddenly, your essential and almost essential expenses have ballooned to $3,600. Your discretionary income, $1,200. That's actually less than before your raise. You made $20,000 more per year, and somehow you have less breathing room. This is lifestyle inflation, the physical manifestation of the hedonic treadmill in your bank account. And it's not just you. According to a 2023 report from lending.tree, over half of Americans earning between $100,000 and $150,000 describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. Let that sink in. People making six figures, putting them in the top 20% of earners, are still financially stressed every month. And it's not just in expensive cities. The data holds up across the country. A 2022 survey from PYMTS found that more than a third of people making over $200,000 also say they're living paycheck to paycheck. At some point, you have to stop blaming the economy and start looking at the psychology. These aren't people who can't afford their lives. These are people whose lives have expanded to consume whatever resources are available. They're sprinting on the treadmill, convinced that just a few more raises will bring peace. But the treadmill doesn't have a finish line. That's the whole point. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Alex, I get it. The treadmill is real. But am I supposed to never want more? Should I just stop improving my life and live like a hermit? Not at all. This is where things get nuanced and most financial advice misses the mark. The goal isn't to eliminate desire. The goal is to want things intentionally, not automatically. There's a huge difference between upgrading your home because you genuinely value space, privacy, and hosting friends, versus upgrading just because that's what people do when they make more money. The first is conscious spending aligned with your values. The second is unconscious adaptation to social expectations. The hedonic treadmill runs on autopilot. It assumes more is always better, that upgrades equal happiness, that your current self will be satisfied by what your past self wanted. But that's a lie. Your current self has already adapted to what you have. Now it wants the next thing. And your future self will adapt to that too. You can't win this game by running faster. You can only win by changing the rules. Let's talk about something called the experience gap. Researchers have consistently found that spending money on experiences like travel, concerts, learning new skills, or spending time with loved ones brings more lasting happiness than buying material things. Why? First, experiences are harder to adapt to because they become memories, not objects. You can't get used to a memory the way you get used to a new phone. Second, experiences often involve social connection, which is one of the strongest predictors of well-being. Third, experiences become part of your identity in a way that possessions don't. You are your adventures, your stories, your challenges overcome, not your car, your watch, or your square footage. A 2014 study in psychological science found that waiting for an experience generates more happiness than waiting for a material purchase, and the positive emotions from experiences last longer after the fact. Here's the financial twist. Experiences are often cheaper than the material upgrades people make instead. A weekend road trip with friends might cost $250. The SUV you bought, partly to justify those trips you rarely take, costs $45,000. A cooking class might be $80 and give you skills and memories. The kitchen remodel you did because your kitchen wasn't nice enough cost $18,000, and you stopped noticing it after a few months. We're systematically overspending on things that provide less happiness and underspending on things that provide more. That's not just bad psychology, it's bad math. There's another trap almost nobody talks about, and it's called the arrival fallacy. This is the illusion that once you reach a certain goal, hit six figures, pay off your house, reach 1 million in net worth, retire early, you'll finally be happy. The fallacy isn't that these things don't matter or won't improve your life. The fallacy is believing that happiness exists at the destination rather than in the journey. Here's what the research actually shows. People are happiest when they're making progress toward meaningful goals, not when they've achieved them. The anticipation of a vacation brings more happiness than the vacation itself. The process of building a business is more satisfying than selling it. Training for a marathon is more fulfilling than crossing the finish line. If you're postponing your happiness, waiting until you arrive financially to feel good about your life, you're making a huge mistake. You're sacrificing the journey, which is where happiness actually lives, for an arrival that will feel empty when you get there. I've talked to people who spent 15 or 20 years grinding toward financial independence, hit their number, and immediately felt lost. The goal that kept them going was gone. The happiness they expected didn't show up, and they realized too late that they'd traded their best years for a promise their brain was never going to keep. So, what can you actually do with all this information? How do you step off the treadmill without giving up on financial success? Here are 3 practical strategies you can start using today. Number 1, set a lifestyle anchor. A lifestyle anchor is a commitment you make to yourself about how much of your future raises you'll allow to go toward lifestyle upgrades versus investments or savings. For most people, I recommend a 70-30 or 60-40 split, with the larger share going to investments. So if you get a $10,000 raise, $3,000 can go toward lifestyle improvements and $7,000 goes straight into investments or savings. This does 2 things. It prevents automatic lifestyle inflation, and it makes the upgrades you do choose feel more intentional and satisfying. The key is to set this rule when you're thinking clearly, not in the moment when you're excited about a raise and already mentally spending it. Number 2, practice negative visualization. This might sound counterintuitive, but it's actually liberating. The idea, borrowed from ancient Stoic philosophy, is to regularly imagine losing the things you currently have, your home, your job, your relationships, not to make yourself miserable, but to break the adaptation that makes you take them for granted. Studies show that this practice increases gratitude and appreciation for your current circumstances, without needing any external change. You don't need to make more money to feel richer. You need to stop adapting to what you already have. Try this once a week. Spend 10 minutes vividly imagining your life if you lost your job and had to go back to your old salary. Feel the anxiety. Then open your eyes and realize you still have what you have. That gap between imagined loss and current reality is where gratitude lives. And gratitude is one of the only known antidotes to hedonic adaptation. Number 3, optimize for time, not just for money. Most people get this backwards. They sacrifice time to earn more money, then use that money to buy conveniences that save small amounts of time, never realizing the trade is deeply unfavorable. A 2017 study in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences found that people who spent money on time-saving purchases reported greater life satisfaction than those who spent on material goods. But here's the real insight. The ultimate time-saving purchase is having enough money that you don't need to work for more. Every dollar you invest instead of spending is a dollar that eventually works for you, buying back hours of your life. At a 4% safe withdrawal rate, every $25 you invest buys you $1 of permanent passive annual income. Do that for 10 years and you've bought yourself a part-time job's worth of income you never have to work for. You're stepping off the treadmill, not by killing your ambition, but by redirecting it. Instead of running faster to buy more stuff, you're running to buy back your time.
That's a race that actually has a finish line. Here's what I want you to remember. The hedonic treadmill isn't evil. It's a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors stay motivated in a world of real scarcity. The problem is we're running ancient software in a world of abundance, surrounded by advertising designed to exploit our psychological blind spots. Every commercial, every social media post, every influencer is trying to convince you that you're not quite there yet, that happiness is just one purchase away. And your brain, with its tendency to adapt to everything good that's ever happened to you, makes this message feel true, even when you know, deep down, that it's not. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're human. But being human also means you have the power to recognize your programming and choose differently. You can decide that enough is a number, not a feeling. You can track your lifestyle creep and consciously resist it. You can invest in experiences over things, in time over money, in progress over arrival. You can step off the treadmill, not because you've given up on success, but because you've realized success was never waiting at the end of an endless run. It was in learning how to walk away from a race that was never designed to be won. If this video helped you see your finances differently, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges how you think about money. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or your own experiences with the hedonic treadmill. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.